I always find that doing this intro in a relaxed situation, quiet room, just leaning back on the couch, so much better than trying to do it standing up. So just to paint a picture for you all, I'm sitting on my comfy couch while Lucky Number 11 plays in the background as I do this. Welcome to The Real Debaters, everybody. I'm Micheal Petrow, your host and one of the debaters on the show. We are supported by Proper Design Works, a custom clothing and embroidery manufacturer in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, my hometown, where this is being recorded from as I speak. Chris Goatsman and his team of wizards at Proper Design Works can do so many things with so much clothing. It's ridiculous. If you're in Winnipeg and you're looking to enhance your closet with something cool and new and custom designed for you, they have that option. And then, I mean, if you're a sports team looking for, a new cool sweater to chug some beer in after the game, if you're a charity looking to get some stuff to sell to raise some money for a good cause, you can buy hoodies and sweaters for that too. You can buy clothing for almost anything these days. New company, need some swag, throw in for some giveaways. They can help you out with that too. You pay them. They don't give it to you, just so we're clear. Anyways, please go and find these guys online. You can find them on Instagram at Proper Design Works. They got all their work up there for you to take a look at. And their email is info@properdesignworks.com. Again, that is info@properdesignworks.com. If you want to start a conversation, thank you, Chris. We appreciate the support. First thing to mention, we have a new series planned for you guys. It is The Real Debaters Goes to the Movies. That's its working title right now, I guess. What we're doing is we paired up with the Park Theater in Winnipeg, and starting April 20th, we're going to be doing live recordings from their cult movie nights. They do about 1 or 2 of those a month. So we're picking like the hardcore cult movie night. What's the first movie we're doing? An American Werewolf in London. The original, right? Where all of the crazy transformation took place, where some of the most ridiculous movie makeup was ever invented and shown to us, lovely fans of movies. So we're going to be starting that. We're going to be trying to do about 1 of those a month, maybe more if we can. So again, like I said, starting April 20th, we'll be podcasting live at the Park Theater before the movie starts. If you want to come on the show, send us an email at therealdebaters@gmail.com. We can work that out with you. We'd love for anybody who's got some love of the movie to come on, and it'll be about, the history of the movie and cult films and what its effect has on its fans. Like, that'll be the conversation that you guys can look forward to. So we're super stoked about that. So thank you to the Park Theater for teaming up with us and letting us go to the movies, right? So cheesy. Anyways, moving on. The merch stand is up. You can find us at designbyhuman.com/ I'm always going to fuck this up. designbyhuman.com/shop/the prop shop. Our hoodies, t-shirts, some of the cool gizmos and gadgets are there for you guys to check out if you want to support the podcast. That is a great way to do so. Again, that is designbyhumans.com/shop/the prop shop. I should have thought of a better fucking title for this. There's just too many tongue twisters in there. Lastly, today, it's another real talk for you guys. And I'm so excited for this. This is the second interview in a series that we've also now figured out a title for called Manitobans Making Movies. Our province, Manitoba, is over the years become a hot spot for filming in this city and in this province, and using it as a lot of other places, as does what happens when you film on location. But there is a lovely, huge, talented group of Manitoba film professionals in this province, and we started with BJ a couple episodes back. BJ Verreau, local Manitoba stuntman. This interview is with Doug Morrow from Character Illusions. He's a makeup artist, and he's been in the industry for close to, if I'm pretty sure, 40 years. He's worked on Jumanji. He's worked on Happy Gilmore. The stories this man has, we were just sitting here enamored by it. It was so great. Doug was so much fun. Just a wealth of knowledge. So if you are a big fan of movie makeup, this is a podcast for you. If you're a big fan of movies and just how they're made in general, it's also a great podcast, in my opinion, to listen to. So without further ado, I will cue the reel, and you enjoy the show.
podcast we were doing today? Doug's the adult film star. Is that?
No, yeah.
Okay, I get my dates mixed up sometimes.
That's
Right.
okay.
Yeah. How come I wasn't invited to that one?
Doug Darkley.
That rolled off
perfect.
the tongue a little too quick.
It does, I know. Yeah.
It's kind of like if he ever does switch from one side of the camera to the other,
There you
Right.
go.
he's got his name ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
So Doug, thank you so much for coming by today and talking with us. So let's, I like most people, I figure the best place to start at anything with this is to start at the beginning. So when did you find out that you had an itch for this, for doing makeup? Like what was the first thing that went, I should maybe
When I was really young, and I'm talking like 5 or 6, I always loved movies. I loved TV, but movies especially, I just always have had a fascination for it. So I don't remember a time when I haven't loved film.
Okay.
And I loved monster movies. So back then,
hell yeah.
this is the early to mid 70s. The monster movies back then were the original Dracula, the original Frankenstein, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, the Wolfman, that kind of stuff. And I used to buy this magazine called Famous Monsters of Filmland.
Oh, nice.
And so I don't know why, I just gravitated towards these creatures, and it just always fascinated me. And I knew I really wanted to do it when I was in grade 4, and I was 8. And I don't know if you guys are old enough, or if they had it when you were kids, the Scholastic Book Club.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the little
your parents would order books for you.
Yeah. So
and
the
they had
little
the book
catalog,
fair and everything.
the little catalog, the newsprint catalog would come every month or something. And there was this book that I saw called Movie Monsters. And I was like, Mom, let's get this book. And I still have the original copy. And it was kind of divided in 3 parts. It talked about famous monsters of the movies. And then the second part was how to do the makeup.
Oh.
And I was like, this is
Sweet.
really cool.
Wow.
I love this. I just have to do this. And
Like
that's where it
like a
started.
step-by-step sort of instructional, or?
Yeah, the book was written by a guy named Alan Ormsby, who he wrote, I think he wrote Cat People.
Cool.
But he wrote some horror movies in the 70s and did makeup effects for, I think it was Tom Savini really early on, like Deranged and maybe one other that I can't remember. So he wrote this book, and this guy was a great artist. So he illustrated the whole book.
Oh, nice.
Other than the first section, he used photographs from, Frankenstein, Dracula, and all that. So it didn't have step-by-step pictures. It was text and a drawing of a kid gluing yarn to his face.
Very rudimentary.
But for me, at 8, this was like gold.
Sure.
And so that's where it started. So that Halloween, my brothers helped me. And
They let you practice on them? Is that how you...
No, I do it to myself. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. So they helped me. We glued yarn to my face with eyelash adhesive and painted my nose, the tip of it, with my mom's eyebrow pencil and stuff. And I still have pictures of it.
I can't imagine your mother, like, after a while, you're like, can I borrow some of your...
No, my parents are so awesome. They're so supportive. And that's why I don't know if succeeded is the right word at what I do, but super supportive. And this is a perfect example. I knew about age 10 that you could use this product called Dermawax to build up features on your face. And, I was 10. Where do you buy that in Winnipeg? But in the basement, we had this stuff I saw in a box called paraffin wax. And I figured it's gotta be close to the same thing. Yeah.
No, here we go.
So I talked to my mom about it. So my mom took a brick of paraffin wax and melted it in a pot and let me take it up to the bathroom, and I put it on my face. And this is like molten wax. And I put it on my face, and I looked like Vincent Price from House of Wax.
No.
That is how awesome my parents were in supporting this.
Oh, that
That is super cool.
I'm just thinking of my own mother, and I'd have 12 no's before even a consideration to let me do something.
Oh, yeah,
like
no.
that.
And so the second makeup book I ever got was this other one. It was called Makeup Monsters. And how I got that was, it was 1977. And I have a memory just for all this crap. So
That's
Please,
fantastic.
please
Perfect for this.
put your memory out there for us.
So my dad and I were at Polo Park, and he loved books, and he instilled in me this love of reading, which I still have to this day. So we were at Coles, and they had a novelization of the 1977 film version of The Island of Dr. Moreau, which I loved. And by then I knew who John Chambers was, the guy who did the makeup for Planet of the Apes, and that was like, Planet of the Apes was my whole life.
If I'm not mistaken, that was like one of your big...
It was. Planet of the Apes was the big thing. When I first saw that, when it was broadcast on TV in 1973, it was like, yeah, I have to do this. I am 7, and I don't know how, but I'm going to do this. So when The Island of Dr. Moreau came out, John Chambers did the makeup for it, like the creatures. So I saw this novelization of the book, and I said, Dad, can you buy this? And he's like, yeah, reading, yeah. It didn't matter what it was, read.
It was a book.
So we're driving home, and my dad says, you might want to look in that bag because there's something else in there that I saw that you might like. And I pulled it out, and it's this book, Makeup Monsters. And it was, very rudimentary makeup book for kids on how to do different monsters like Dracula and the Wolfman and, all that kind of stuff. So that was my parents. And my dad was a doctor, and my parents were very, you got to go to school and get an education. But they were also very supportive of the arts. And
So what you're telling me is your father was Dr. Morrow?
that's correct. Yes. Yeah. He was Dr. Moreau.
Wow.
Yeah.
Art imitating life
Yeah,
for real.
I so wish that he was turning animals into men in our basement. It
Let's do
never
some
happened.
hybrid surgery here.
Yeah. But so I come by it honestly that my parents knew that I had this interest and fostered it.
That's fantastic. That actually, it's funny that around that same age as you talk about kids playing, and I recall vividly my aunt was who raised me for much of my life, did cake decorating, and she had these powdered cake colors,
Yeah.
Food colorings and things, but she had this red powdered coloring that I discovered you mix up with water and a thing, and it really looks like blood.
Yeah.
And I remember having this stuff in my mouth. I found my dad's Polaroid camera, and I remember taking pictures. We didn't have a movie camera at that time, but we did these little. I was into acting around that same age, and I kind of pursued that for a lot of my life. But I always wanted to be the one, dressed up, doing the part.
Yeah.
But the same thing with in the kitchen lab, mixing up all these things to try to make it gory. That's fantastic.
I think like I remember doing a volcano project for grade 6 science fair, and then when you start to realize how to make foam with baking soda, and then you add food coloring to it, I think we all have that like slime and blood.
Exactly,
and like it's very childlike at first, and then I feel if like you said, like you had this itch at 7, that kind of is going to definitely dictate the rest of your career. So you get these books, you have these very supportive parents. Where do you really start hammering down, going, like, unless you're Jesus, and the rest of your life is planned out for you, but like, where do you start making the plans to learn and pursue this craft and find a place that teaches it?
I was always educating myself. I'd go to the library at junior high school, and they had this book that every makeup artist read called Course in Stage Makeup. That was really back in the late 70s, early 80s, the really only information. And then that I was aware of, in 1981 or 82, I found this book called Techniques of Three-Dimensional Makeup. So by now I'm like 16, 17. And it's written by this makeup artist in New York. And it's all illustrated with pictures, and it was all how to do prosthetics, and it was like professional stuff. And there was a lot of information from this makeup artist named Dick Smith, who did the makeup for The Exorcist and The Godfather, and this guy was one of my heroes. And back in the late 70s, I knew he did this movie called Little Big Man, where he aged Dustin Hoffman to a 121-year-old man.
Crazy.
And I used to
The original Benjamin Button, just in forward.
Yeah, exactly. And I used to, I didn't tell my parents this till years later, but I'd go through they knew I went through the TV guide that came in the Free Press every Saturday, and I'd look
Oh,
through
those
all
were the days.
all through the movies to see one if Planet of the
TV what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I was there with the pen
Yeah,
circling.
the highlighter.
So I would go through it every Saturday to see if Planet of the Apes was on, because that was my fascination. But one time I saw this, I was about 13, and it said Little Big Man, and I knew that Dick Smith had done this movie. So, and this is unbeknownst to my parents, and I did this for years, is that they would go to sleep, and I would sneak downstairs and watch these movies, like in the basement.
That a boy.
At like 2 a.m, when I had to get up and go to school. And I saw this movie, and it was like, that can't be makeup. That looks like a super old guy. And then, in learning later on that, yes, in fact, it was Dustin Hoffman, and this guy created this amazing makeup. So I was always educating myself, and still do it to this day.
Can I ask you something? Because from the research that, I tripped over the fascination, like I was telling you before the show, movie makeup has always been something I think everybody kind of has the big question is, how do they make the blood, right? And those kind of questions for us laymen's.
Yeah.
But I guess, go away, phone. It just seems that everybody found that book, right? Like all the greats have found a book.
Yeah.
I'm calling you a great.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
And they found a book, and that tipped off their desire and their love for this. But it doesn't seem like there's like the school to go to, right? Or the you just have to do it, and then crash and burn a couple times and realize paraffin wax may not be the best thing to put on my face.
Exactly.
But,
yeah.
you figure it out.
Yeah.
Is that safe to say?
I think, like all the old timers, I don't think they went to school, right? They just taught themselves and learned and all that. When I was probably 18, I started to see in back of Fangoria magazine advertisements for schools in LA. So I wrote to them and just to see what their requirements were or whatever. And part of it was you had to, you got to do beauty makeup. I was like, I don't want to do beauty makeup. I want to turn people into apes and Wookiees and stuff like that.
Can I get past 101 and get to the good shit?
Yeah, exactly. But by then I'd already been practicing enough. Like by then I was already making stuff out of foam latex. Like when I was 14, I cast my brother's face.
Sweet.
And I still have it, life mask.
Wow.
And I wish I had your brother. You as a brother.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine?
So I was already playing around with like cold foam, which is 2-component foam that you mix together and expands. And when I was 10, I had these Planet of the Apes dolls, and I used to take the heads off them. And
As you do.
They were made out of some kind of plastic. And if you bought a carton, like a little carton of like Tang or something, it had that little cup, that little scoop.
Yeah.
So I used to fill that scoop with plaster, and then I would take the Planet of the Ape head and I would submerge the front half of it into it to make a mold. And then I would squeeze, because my dad bought me tubes of liquid latex from Malabar's here in town, and I would squeeze it in there. So I was making stuff out of rubber, at age 10, because I knew that's how they...
A foam out of a Tang cup.
Well, it wasn't foam. It was just liquid latex.
sorry, yeah.
It took me years to understand the technology of the positive and the negative, and then what is this mysterious foam latex stuff.
Yeah. You hear a lot about foam. Foam latex is kind of a major component.
Not anymore.
Not anymore? Okay.
No.
All right.
We'll discuss kind of what we use later. But,
okay, yeah.
But foam latex was like this mysterious, the Planet of the Apes faces were made out of it, and it was like gold. So anyway, I've been, I was always playing around with this. And but I wrote to some of these schools in the mid-'80s, but also in the mid-'80s, in 1985, this great makeup artist, Dick Smith, who's one of my heroes, and he had just won an Oscar for Amadeus, started a advanced professional makeup course.
Wow.
That he ran, and you had to send him pictures of your work for him to accept you into this course. So it took me a couple of years before I was brave enough to send him pictures of my work. And he said, the letter that I got, and I still have it, said that the first line is, "Dear Doug, your pictures are not in focus."
No.
I'm not in cinematography.
I
I'm
think-
trying to be in makeup.
No.
Cut me some slack, Dick.
I think Dick's glasses were dirty that day or something. Anyway, but he said, but I can see enough to satisfy me that I was able to deal with this course. And what was really cool about that was, so I went to university and, I was trying to be something. And I would go home and go in the basement, and I had a little makeup lab, and I was, my parents thought I was studying, and I was like making stuff. So, and my grades
like
really,
in your biology textbook, you've got Fangoria
exactly,
inside. Yeah.
Somebody else has Playboy, and I'm like, oh my God, look at that. So after a couple of years of university, I sat my parents down and said, look, I really need to try and figure out how to do this and at least try. And my parents were like, okay, sure. So I quit university and I got a job, and I spent 3 or 4 months creating these prosthetic makeups, and Halloween was coming up.
Perfect.
My dad, we got everybody. I did 3 Planet of the Apes makeups, and my brother, I made him up as Vincent from that Beauty and the Beast show with Ron Perlman.
Yes.
Yes.
And I did a couple of zombies, and my dad photographed them all. And they were in focus. Don't worry, Dad. and we sent them to Dick. And 2 weeks later, he sends me back this outline of the course and accepting me as his
That's
student.
awesome.
Yeah. So that was my real education.
Okay.
Was Dick Smith's course.
This is amazing to me that all this is taking place in the 80s, where you have to look at the back of a book, a magazine to find this out, and you have to do a handwritten letter, Jimmy.
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
He's wondering why it took 2 weeks to
what?
respond to the email.
Why didn't you just use a YouTube tutorial?
Exactly, yeah.
You actually had to work to get this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And where to find the stuff that you were playing around with. I mean, where do you find that at that age? And how do you even know where it exists?
Well, I mean, I was a super nerd and stuff, so Fangoria and Famous Monsters of Filmland and Cinefex and those, those were the things that we learned
Bibles.
from. Yeah.
So were you ordering stuff from the back of these magazines?
Yeah, so about this time too, there was some people in LA that started producing videotapes on how to do this stuff. So I was ordering those, and that was also my real education. And this was a couple of years before Dick's course.
Okay.
And so I was ordering these videotapes, VHS videotapes, and
Betamax.
well, my friend had Betamax, and it was better, I think. But
that ends that argument.
yeah. So just getting whatever information I could, and it was like back then it was hard. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have YouTube. You had to actively search this out any way, shape, or form. I would watch Entertainment Tonight every night to see what was going to be on in case they would have Rick Baker or Stan Winston
Right.
or Dick
Oh,
Smith,
yeah.
and I would tape them, and I built up this library just to get any information that I could.
Man, gone are the days. Like, I figured out how to make a phone call on the podcast on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right. And like, if that hadn't been there, I something in this room probably would have been broken. Right. Because you don't have the patience is gone that you obviously had to have to learn.
But we didn't know any different.
You didn't,
right?
yeah,
No.
exactly. Yeah,
Right?
totally.
If
So
you
it's-
wanted
yeah.
to write somebody, you wrote them a letter and stuck it in the mailbox. And
And if you wanted to see a movie, you looked in the guide to see if they were playing it sometime, because that's the only way
that
to
was
see
the only
movies.
way to see it. Yeah. Yeah.
So you have played for a couple years. You've got these magazines. You've got this skill set that you're trying to build. You get in with Dick. What happens after Dick Smith? Like, where do we? You've completed a course. Do you then jump in and start sending your resume out?
The course took a year.
Okay.
Like, it was Dick sending you lessons, and it wasn't really a course. Like, I didn't do stuff and send it to him. And it took a year. He would mail you.
He's kind of like a mentor. It sounds.
Yeah.
Like, would that?
And his course is actually more like a book.
Okay.
So every 2 weeks, you would get in the mail a chapter of the book, which might have been
Well, this guy's a good businessman. One chapter a week.
yeah, life casting and mold making, or sculpting, or whatnot. And so in there as well, I did go to Vancouver and I took a very basic makeup course, a 3-week basic makeup course, because I figure I need to learn just regular.
Is this the beauty makeup stuff? Okay, all right.
Which was terrifying. So that was,
In what
again,
way was it terrifying? Just
beauty makeup. I knew nothing about it at all. By then I knew how to make foam rubber and glue it on people and paint it rudimentary.
Like how to do a proper eyeliner wing or something was like way out of your wheelhouse.
Yeah, totally. It
Who's
was
the judge of
scary.
what beauty really is?
That's
right?
true.
Like,
None of
if
us.
you-
Not, yeah,
Right, yeah.
yes, they're from a makeup artist's mouth.
None of us are.
Damn.
Yeah.
So you go to the school.
Yeah. That's one thing, too, I just want to point out about my parents, where my dad had a love of art and music. And I remember as a kid, he was showing me different books, and we were looking at different art techniques over the years, like over the ages. And looking at some paintings by guys in the 1600s, and then showing me something that was painted in the 1800s, and how the earlier one looked it was very beautifully done, but it didn't look like a photograph. And then showing me something in the 1800s where somebody painted something and it looked like a photograph, or showing me early sculpture compared to like Michelangelo or whatnot, where they're sculpting in marble and it looks like skin, and you just swear that you could touch it even though it's white marble. And just being able to see with your eye those things, which helped immeasurably in makeup. And so learning how to do the beauty makeup made me just better at everything, like the prosthetics and the painting and whatnot.
I read a quote by you that said something like, if you're going to make it in the industry, you have to be able to do beauty makeup. Something you need to know the whole industry.
Yeah, unless you live in LA, or some people in Vancouver, Toronto, that are very specialized, and those centers are busy enough that if you're lucky and you've been doing it a while, you can make a living just sculpting or just making fake heads. But I knew that Dick Smith and John Chambers and some of these other guys, like, they did just more than
They specialize
the prosthetic stuff. And in the end of their careers, they specialized just in the prosthetics. But in The Exorcist, Dick did all the makeup. He did Ellen Burstyn's, makeup, and also did her bruised eye when Reagan hits her, and also spins Linda Blair's head around, also ages Max von Sydow.
Oh wow!
And
cross discipline.
So that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to do it all, so that I could be like a one-stop shop.
You go to Doug Morrow for everything.
Well, yeah. So I can get hired now on a show and be in charge of all the makeup, but they'll also hire me to do all the prosthetic stuff.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Like a bigger toolbox, obviously.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
When what was your first movie? When did you first get hired? Like what was that process like?
My first real movie was this show with John Ritter called Stay Tuned. That was my first movie.
Is it TV?
1991. No, it was a feature.
It was a feature, but is it about TV?
Yeah, it's about TV.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
I used to watch it a lot as a kid.
So that was my
Isn't
first...
it like, doesn't life take place inside the TV?
He gets trapped in different iterations of TV shows that we know, like Star Trek or Wayne's World, but they're Wayne's Underworld and whatever. So that was my first movie, but I had already, by 1989, I started to get work here in town. So I did some commercials. I did Rainbow Stage. I built the prosthetics for The Wizard of Oz. And my first kind of regular job was I did what we call moulage makeup, which is casualty simulation makeup. For people training lifeguards. So I was employed by the University of Manitoba, and every Sunday for 5 hours, they would train the lifeguards, and they hired me, and they create a situation that the lifeguards in training need to assess. And so we would get together in a room and say, okay, Doug, make this guy look like he fell down the stairs and bashed his head, and he's bleeding out of the mouth and bleeding out of the ears. And then so I do that, and we set the situation up, and then they release these lifeguards in training into there so they can assess it and see if they properly assess it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
I was a lifeguard for a few years, and I'm happy I didn't have to do that.
Like you imagine, here's your exam, kids, and it's like you've come in to make someone's arm go in a completely different direction.
I'm thinking when I was getting into acting, how do I get a gig like that to be the guy with the head injury?
Yeah.
And then in the middle of being taken care of, you're like, surprise!
I think that's the role it's made for you, Mark.
Yeah. So 1989 was when I really first started getting paid to do this kind of stuff. So I did some, a few commercials and whatnot, and then moved to Vancouver because they didn't make movies here in Winnipeg.
Manitoba wasn't a hub back then, right?
No. I knew they did, what were those movies you'd see in school, and they were done by the something of
Sex
Canada.
ed class? Is
Oh,
that
like
No,
the
no.
Canadian Film Board?
Canadian
and
Film
stuff like
Institute
that?
of Canada.
Canadian Film Board of Canada and
Okay.
whatnot. They did some things here, and the only movie that I knew that they shot here, they did. They shot a week of some Molly Ringwald movie here because they needed winter.
And
And
boy,
I
do
re-
we have that.
Yeah,
in spades.
yeah, in spades. And I went down to where they were shooting. It was in River Heights to see if I could get in and talk to the makeup artist. They wouldn't let me. They wouldn't let me in.
You cannot cross this line.
Yeah. So when I moved to Vancouver, because I had taken this Dick Smith course, that already elevated me with the makeup people, and I got a job immediately at this makeup store called Act One,
Okay.
which is right on Robson Street. It's not there anymore. And because I had that job, I got to meet a ton of the makeup people because they would come in to buy stuff. So I would hi, my name's Doug Morrow. I'm from Winnipeg. I took Dick Smith's course. Here's my rudimentary
Here's my
portfolio.
CV, yeah.
Will you hire me?
How can I help you today?
Exactly, yeah. And some of them, they'd come in, every once in a while, and they'd the same ones, and they'd roll their eyes and go, "Oh, Doug's here again." Oh my God, Doug. We don't need to know how fake blood is made. Just sell it to me. So
I've got a new way to do this. Do you want to hear about it? Just sell it to me, Doug.
yeah. So that was how I got him because I took Dick Smith's course. Back then, he was very selective. You had to really show this guy that you could sculpt and make molds and make foam rubber pieces. And not that my work was outstanding or anything, but it was, I was the start.
You were on the way.
I was on the way. But because of that, I started to get work almost immediately when I had next to no experience. So the first actual job I got was, I think it was an episode of Highlander, the TV series, and it was the first.
There can only be one.
There can be only one. One of my favorite movies, by the way. I needed to make it look like they grabbed this guy's finger and broke it.
Oh my
So they
God.
wanted a prosthetic finger. So I went down to the set and I cast this guy's hand with the finger sticking up and then like that, and then I went home and I had this tiny little apartment in downtown Vancouver,
Full of chemicals and
yeah. And I baked it in the oven in there and everything, and so and back then too, there was hardly anybody who really did that kind of stuff in Vancouver. So I went there at the right time. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So and how long did you've got your IMDb page is long. Mm-hmm. So how much time did you spend in Vancouver? Was that
7 years?
7 years?
It was, yeah.
And is that where you kind of solidified the start of everything for you before you jumped to LA?
No, I never went to LA.
You never went to LA.
No,
okay, so
I only worked in Vancouver.
Okay.
And then I moved back to Winnipeg.
So
but I did travel. I've never worked in LA.
Oh, okay.
This is interesting.
I don't know if I should talk about this or not. I did a little bit of work in California, but we
Yeah, okay. All right. I get it. Yeah. No, the governments and all that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Volunteer work.
I can
Exactly,
assure you that nobody of that importance will hear this episode.
Okay, excellent.
So but we can move on. No big
Right.
deal. Okay, so then explain to me, because going through your CV and everything, how are you doing work in Vancouver for all of you've got Jumanji. You've got Happy Gilmore. Mm-hmm. Is that being filmed in Vancouver? Okay, so those movies, see, our love, I think, doesn't go that deep unless we research it.
Totally.
Right? We're all on, Jimmy, I know, is hard in the paint when it comes to what he loves, but I think I can say for me and Mark, we only go as deep as we go. Actually, no, I think I'm the only one because Mark will find a rabbit hole and just keep going down and down and down until.
Oh yeah, Doug was my rabbit hole for the last couple of days.
Yes, so was mine too. So
I'm a little uncomfortable.
You got 3 big fans in front of you.
Okay.
So all of this work is being done in Vancouver, and is it being shipped there, or is it being filmed in Vancouver?
was being filmed in Vancouver.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So,
While we're on that topic, I just want to ask what Happy Gilmore, what sort of stuff did you do on there? Because we had like Chubb's fake arm, and we got no.
the only thing I did, it was one day, and the makeup artist on the show called me and said, we need to make Adam Sandler look like he's been like beaten up with swelling features and stuff. And I'm like, okay, sounds really cool. And I knew who Adam was just from Saturday Night Live.
Fresh pepper.
So, and she just said, he doesn't like to sit for a long time in makeup. So I was like, okay, great. So I made these little pieces, and I still have the molds. Like these are like my little holy grail molds of, because
Sandler's face.
Happy Gilmore. Like I love.
You may
golf
recognize
and
this
everything.
scar from.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So I built these little pieces like swollen eye and maybe a cheek and something else, and I glued them on a friend and just colored it up, see how fast I could do it, and I could do it in about 90 minutes. I was like, I think that should be pretty good. So the day comes and I go to the set and I meet Adam, who's like the nicest guy in the whole world, and it's really cool. Is again, I'm like a movie and TV nut. So Dennis Dugan, I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he's the director, and he's directed a lot of Adam's movies, and he's also in a lot of Adam's movies. So he's the guy who's
Part of the Happy Madison family.
yeah,
Right,
and
okay.
he in Happy Gilmore, he's the guy who's in charge of the golf.
He plays Doug.
Yeah, Doug. I think that's his name.
Yeah.
Not that I would remember that, but anyway. So that's right. His name is Doug. Yeah.
Ding!
So it was
Point
really
for Jimmy.
cool for me to meet him because he was on an episode of MASH, which to me was like really cool, right?
Yeah.
I got to work with David Ogden Stiers too once, but we'll save that for later. So anyway, I show up there and he sits in the chair and it's like, how long is this going to take? And I said, that was his first words out of his mouth after hi. I said, hopefully Lisa, the makeup artist, and I, we're going to both do it. It should take about 70, 75 minutes. He's like, well, that seems kind of a long time, but okay. So we're gluing these things on, and he's asking me, are you from here, or where are you from, and how'd you get into this? And he's asking me all these questions, and then he starts pretending that he's my grandma from Winnipeg and doing this voice and how proud she is of me that I made it in the movie business.
You're so good at makeup.
And so I'm trying to work and I'm laughing and it's getting to the point where I can't do anything because I just love to laugh, and I'm just kind of backing away and laughing and trying to do it, and then it starts to take a little longer than the time that he said, and he's like, are you almost done yet? And I go, no, not quite. And then he'd do, oh, Doug, I'm so proud of you, and all this. And so finally you go, okay, you got to be done. And I said, you know what? If you just shut up and just not make me laugh, then we can finish. And he's like, okay. And then he just kept making me laugh.
Yeah.
Anyway, we finished it, and we went and shot it, and he was just a lot of fun. Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And he was young. That's a while ago, right?
Yeah,
So
that
he's
was
just like riveting with energy. I can
About
only,
1994, I think.
the real big start of him leaving SNL and
Yeah.
kind of going off and doing his own thing.
Yeah.
What's a set like?
Like
Like
any
for-
set?
Well, I would say what is a day in the life? Here's the question: what's the day in the life of you? Like when you sign up for a show or a movie, what are you doing most of your work from your studio? Are you doing a lot of it on set? Like where is
All the preparatory work done in my studio.
Okay.
So those days, 20, 30 years ago, I could do it from 8 in the morning until 2 the next morning, and those days are gone, So, and I now I'm getting bigger shows, so I have people that work for me. So I try to start about 8 or 9 in the morning in the studio and work till 5 or 6. And sometimes you have to work longer, or you have to work 6 or 7 days. But I try not to do that. So those days are pretty civilized. When you get on set, especially if you're doing prosthetic makeups, those days can be very long. So, for instance, I did something for a Sean Penn movie
Flag Day?
that shot here, Flag Day, and I won't go into detail about what I did, but my day started at 3 a.m. and they were here in the winter and they needed some winter stuff. So we had to get it all shot in the day. So we went over lunch a little bit, and everyone was asked if that was okay. And they said, yeah, we got to get this done. So my day started at 3 a.m. and it didn't finish until, like, I didn't stop working or whatever until about 4:30 that afternoon. So like 14 and a half hours later.
At like the worst start time.
Yeah. So now those are the exception, not the rule.
Okay.
So on any given normal day, let's say I might start at 6 in the morning. Then the crew, because we makeup and hair and wardrobe, we're always in earlier, like an hour to 2 hours, depending on how many casts. So let's say I might start at 6 and the rest of the crew starts at 8. And then we'll eat lunch at 2 and then, maybe finish at 8 or 9 in the evening. So that's a typical day.
Okay.
Yeah. So anywhere between 13 and 15 hours.
And how many, like, what's the longest you've done a makeup for, like, consecutive in the chair? Because you hear, like, prime example, Mystique.
Yeah.
Okay, from X-Men, right? Like,
Yeah.
that is a lot of work. So I imagine that you are spending a lot of time with somebody. Like Adam Sandler, 75 minutes. I mean, you can watch a movie in that time, but are you doing 8-9 hour runs sometimes?
Not that long. I helped out occasionally on the X-Files. And
yes, I read
so
that.
There's a few things that were long. But,
Mulder or Scully, which one?
Yeah, I can't say.
Okay.
I'll let you guys decide that one. But,
no.
He's a Mulder guy, I think. But
Yeah.
I get what you're putting down.
But
I don't.
so for instance, I did a TV movie, actually 2 miniseries about Don Cherry.
yes, you did.
Right.
Wrath of Grapes, right?
And we had to age him. I had to age him. And,
Jared Cuso.
Jared Cuso. Super awesome guy.
I always mispronounce names, by the way.
Kiso.
Kiso. Okay.
Jared Cuso, yeah.
You were pretty
Super
close.
lovely guy. Awesome. So when I aged him to kind of like Don's present age at the time we shot it, because that was like
Which
10
is what,
10 years ago.
107?
Something like that, yeah.
Roughly.
So that makeup took between 4 and 5 hours, and then we would shoot for 12 hours, and then it would be half an hour to 45 minutes to clean them up. So those days were like
You can't just like
18-hour
rip
days.
it off and then walk out. And
Not really,
just one
no.
big piece.
Not if you want the actor to show up the next
Right.
day.
Yeah, 'cause their faces probably. Because as I mentioned, that horror museum that I went to in Universal, they showed
The Elephant Man.
the Elephant Man. They showed who was it? Frank. I think it's Frankenstein who played him. Took out his
Boris Karloff.
Boris Karloff took out his own
his
dental plate, right?
Yeah, dental plate.
So that he had a more saggy feature
On one side of his face, if you look, it's the right side of his face, and he had a dental plate. When he took it out, it made this indent.
Yeah.
Just really cool. I have a giant poster of it in my workshop. And,
Of course you do.
yeah, and it's a really cool touch. Yeah.
I guess what I'm getting at is there lots of intimacy between makeup artist and actor, right? You're spending lots of time together.
Yeah.
Has what have you seen change over the years when it comes to your toolbox, your like the things that you can use? Because back then, I mean, they were using some very base, like you say, wool and wax and glues and stuff that were layered upon layered upon layered.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine the shower after, right?
And actually, there's some days where Boris Karloff would go home in the makeup and sleep in it.
Crazy.
Because the
original
makeup,
Daniel Day-Lewis there.
yeah,
Scary
the makeup
in
would
the
take,
morning.
Yeah, the makeup would take 4 or 5 hours to put on because it was all. He had a rubber piece that was slush rubber, and then the actual brow was built up with cotton and collodion, which is like a liquid plastic. That's like a sealer. And not very flexible or movable, but still really effective. But in the late 30s, they came out with foam latex. So their foam latex was used actually for props, and somebody said, "Hey, let's try and make noses out of it or whatever." And they also used a product called gelatin, which we still use as well. But the whole process of making the prosthetics is pretty much exactly the same. You have a life mask of the actor, and you have a positive and negative mold in which you put whatever prosthetic material into it. It's all exactly the same. It's just now, whereas we used foam latex for years and years, we now use silicone.
Okay, because
for the most part,
is it more lifelike and maneuverable, or
it moves a little more realistically compared to foam rubber. It's like squishes and compresses like flesh, and it's semi-translucent depending on how much you color it, so it already looks more like real skin.
Okay.
And doesn't require as much makeup on top of it. So if you, because back in the day you could do a really great age makeup in foam latex, but you took the guy on set, and it was really good, but it still looked like he had stuff on his face. Whereas if you do it in silicone now, you can take him on set, and it almost can pass for the real thing if it's done skillfully enough.
Do you have a machine like they did in Mission Impossible 3 where they made Philip Seymour Hoffman and Tom
Totally,
Cruise?
yeah.
You have that? Yeah. That
but
exists?
You know what? Speaking of that, so this is really cool. So in 1980, my mom bought me this other book, which is awesome, called
Your parents are so awesome.
They're the best. This book called Making a Monster, and it was wasn't about monsters really. It was just about makeup artists from like kind of 1930 to 1980. So Stan Winston and Rick Baker and John Chambers and Dick Smith are all in them. But there's a guy who created the makeup for the Elephant Man, Christopher Tucker. And at the end of his little chapter, he's being interviewed, and he says, one day I'd like to invent a machine where you could take a picture of somebody and put that information into a machine which would be able to cut out a three-dimensional copy, which is basically 3D printing, right?
Yeah. Wow.
And this guy in the late 70s is already thinking about, how can we do this? And I always thought, I just remembered that when 3D printing started, and I went back and read this, and it's like, this guy is like, he's foreshadowed. He's foreshadowed 3D
Totally.
printing, yeah.
Wow.
Is there something in the industry that's kind of on the verge of doing
so
this?
there are some people that are creating in a computer, sculpting and making the molds and 3D printing them, and then you just put your prosthetic material into it. Yeah.
So I have a really hard time with the spatial recognition where I'm thinking of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So when you say the molds, so I'm sure we've all seen it where like they put all that plaster over the person. Is that the making of the life mask?
So that's the making of the life mask.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then once you have that, then you pour inside that mold.
Correct. So the easiest way to describe it is, imagine if you took your hand and you stuck it in the snow and you pulled it out, you would leave an imprint of the hand.
Okay.
So it's the same thing. You use this product. We use silicone as well, but you mainly use this product called alginate, which is what dentists use to take an impression of your teeth. And they now make special alginates for casting body parts and heads and stuff. So you basically make an impression, an imprint of the person's face or head or arm or whatever, and into that you'd pour plaster. And then you have a plaster 3D replica of the face or the arm or whatever you're doing. And then you would take clay, plasticine, and you would sculpt the new feature, if it's the Elephant Man or Cyrano de Bergerac's nose or Gary Oldman into Churchill. So you sculpt with clay, and you tap in all the pores and all the detail, and I'm making this as general as I can. Then you make, because you actually would make up like what we call a proper positive, which I won't get into because no one can see me. But anyway,
Fucking podcasts.
Yeah. So then you make a mold of that sculpture with the person's face. And then when you take those two apart, you have the positive of the person's face and the negative of their face plus the sculpture. And you take the sculpture off, and when you put the two back together, they touch around the sculpture, which is what we would call the blending edge, but there's a space where the clay was. And that's where you put the prosthetic material. And then you'd pour the prosthetic material, if it's foam rubber, into the mold, and then you squish the face into it so that the inside conforms to the actor's face and the outside resembles whatever they're going to become.
Right.
So it's basically like a perfectly fit mask for their face, but
Exactly.
This is how they're going to do the new James Dean movie, I think. They're just going to get a plastic
Maybe,
mold of a face.
Yeah.
yeah, if the hologram, I don't know if you've heard this, but apparently holograms are now making their way into Hollywood with
I've heard
replace.
this.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you, as somebody who would rather make a prosthetic? I mean, I can't imagine that it's something that's highly.
It'd be very
anticipated.
expensive. And the other thing, like if I was a director, I wouldn't want to work on a movie where I can't direct that
Right.
character.
You have to tell the computer guy to
Exactly.
do what you want.
And
then
how many directors are satisfied with one take of something?
None.
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 Stanley Kubrick. He was
Yeah, exactly. No, wait, 95 takes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to me, and also it'd be very expensive. Whereas if you see a movie like Darkest Hour or Bombshell or something like that, the magic of makeup totally gives the impression that this is real and you're looking at a real person.
Which I, as a purist, am a huge fan of. I like practical more than I like
And
CGI.
I've seen it go from what I do and practical all the way, and then when digital came in, digital, I can do anything, and now it's going back, and I work with directors all the time who go, I don't want to do, anything digital unless we need to. I want to see practical. I want to see practical blood. I want to see whatever it is,
That's
so a lot
the
of times
balance,
now,
I guess, that scales tipped, and now they're
And
finally
that's-
finding.
yeah, and that's how I think it should be used. Is if you
Perfect
need
balance.
the help to complement one or the other, then you should use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's lots of times where, we'll slice a throat, and before you had to figure out a way to hide.
What'd you do today, honey? Slit a throat.
Yeah. did they give you a check? Yes. Okay, that's great.
Right.
I saw all over your webpage all different throat slicings. Actually, you have a lot.
Look at my work.
So in the old days, we would have to figure out how to hide that slice.
Yeah.
Right? And most of the time it was camera trickery where the person's arm would be in front of the slice already, and you'd pull their arm back and then they'd jerk their head back and make it look like, right? So now what we can do with digital is digital can actually remove the slice, and you can have the actor sitting there making his neck look like there's nothing happening, and then the actor can pull his arm across and give a more meaty effect to it.
You're using both at the same
Right,
time
exactly,
for
yeah.
maximum benefit.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Using CGI to actually mask practical.
Yeah.
That's cool. I would have never thought of that.
No, because you think that everything just gets better, right? It's like,
Exactly,
this is
yeah.
better than this, so we must get rid of this. No, it's like, let's make a cocktail of everything and,
Yeah.
watch the magic happen.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
So I myself, we've seen it where it totally took away from companies that were, based solely almost on building creatures that they would do animatronically and whatever, and then that totally getting decimated by digital, and now it's going back to, oh no, we want to create a suit, we want to, we want a guy in there, and we want to be able to touch it and stuff.
So I got just a quick question on
Please.
here. So some of these elaborate outfits and stuff like that, where is the line drawn between makeup and special effects and costuming? Because it seems like in some things they just flow together. The costume is the
Yeah, if if it's a creature like the creature from the Black Lagoon, that's a makeup effect, really. So they would hire somebody like me or whatever. Costume would be they would help put the costume on it. They don't, or maybe costume might make armor
okay.
and stuff like that. That they might employ sculptors and things and make molds, but it's still part of the costume department.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know there's some crazy creatures that their body and their costume kind of just become one at some point.
And so that's where you're
kind of leaning towards
the two work together to create the final product. Yeah.
I think the one that gets talked about the most, I think where Mark's kind of playing, is the American Werewolf and London Transformation, right? Like every time I hear anybody talking about makeup, that always comes up. And is it safe to say it was ahead of its time?
Oh yeah, and it was huge inspiration to anybody who's my age who does this, because you saw a guy change on camera, and it wasn't Lon Chaney sitting in a chair with his head on a plaster pillow, not moving, changing. This was a guy in bright light, and his body was changing shape, and we'd never seen that before. And to me, there is no digital effect that's ever even come close to that. That is still, you watch it today, and that movie came out in 1981. it still looks amazing, looks real, and better than any digital that you could possibly imagine.
Well, and like with anything, when it becomes popular, then it becomes, there's knockoff versions of it, right? And it gets used a lot. And then you can, I guess what I'm saying is I know that they, like, we slum in television sometimes on this show. That's the joke, right? Because we're all movies, but we appreciate all kinds of media. So, but I know that Werner Herzog argued Disney for
the puppet
in The Mandalorian to be real, to be an animatronic, to be a makeup, to be a prosthetic, as opposed to being CGI, because you can eventually see it, right? Like if you see enough of the same thing, you can be like, okay, I'm not a professional, I'm a layman, I'm on this side of the screen, but I can tell you, and I know that that's not real,
and it takes you out of the story,
and exactly,
yeah.
So it's nice to see that that's still being argued, because Disney's got the money to throw; they can do anything they want.
Yeah.
So to stay in with, I guess, the old guard or the old method
and then speaking of that, exactly when they redid Beauty and the Beast a few years ago and did the live action thing, and they made the Beast a digital creature. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the actual tests that they built of a guy in makeup.
No.
But it's a million times better than the digital thing. This thing was gorgeous. It was beautiful.
So
it
what
was
do you
incredible.
What do you think made them change?
Because they have a ton of money, and they probably didn't want to. No, we don't want the guy in makeup for 4 hours, and it's going to extend our shooting schedule. And let's just do like my Disney voice. Let's just, let's just.
I'm Bob Iger.
Let's just do it digital, and it just doesn't work. And it's like the creatures in I Am Legend.
Right.
Takes you totally out of the movie. That movie was terrifying up until you saw them, and then it was this is I'm gonna go to 7-Eleven because I don't.
When they lived in the shadows, it was built all that suspense, and then you count as a big letdown.
I'm happy they didn't go the Omega Man route though, where it was just guys in robes and gray.
Kidding, I love that. I went up. I went as one of those characters for Halloween. If you look on my Twitter page, there's a picture of me in that makeup, and I went as when I had the white eyes and everything. I love that. That was awesome. Did these little. My white face was a little better than the paleness that they did, but yeah.
I was gonna say, Mike, were you foreshadowing with an American Werewolf in London there at all?
Oh yeah, we've it's out there. Yeah, that's a product placement for a next show. No, we're working with the Park Theater for their cult movie nights.
Oh, okay, cool.
So we're gonna be doing live recordings from the theater.
Oh, wow.
We're going to talk about the history of the movie and how it has become a cult.
Oh, I'd love to be a part of that. Can I be a part of it?
And American Werewolf in London is the first movie.
That's the first one.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So
thank you for the plug.
Yeah. It's in April. If your schedule allows for it, I would love for you to come down and just give us 20 minutes of your time.
I would love that.
Awesome. I'll keep you in the loop on it.
Okay.
For sure.
Cool.
So what have you seen some of the biggest changes in the makeup industry over the years? Like, where have you...
It's the materials that we use to create the prosthetic pieces, and it's also new materials. So, where in the old days we used pretty much this product called rubber mask grease paint.
Well, that sounds like I want that on my face.
Yeah, no, you do. It smells really
grease
awesome.
paint.
Yeah.
Is that a red dye number 5?
Actually, that's pretty close to what we used to make blood. But yeah.
Actually, Kay, while you're on that, because this has been bouncing around in my head. So okay. Blood, slime, ooze. What are the major components for these things?
So when we make slime or ooze or stuff like that, it's mainly a product called Methicel, which you can get different grades of. So I hear people in my industry go, "Oh yeah, Methicel. That's what they use to thicken milkshakes at McDonald's." So there is a specific grade of Methicel, which yes, it's a food thickener. Yeah, we use a different grade because there's also grades of Methicel that they use for eye drops and contact lens wetting solution and things like that. So we use Methicel, and it's just this powder, and you mix it with hot water, and depending on how much of each you use, you can make it like super thin and stringy or really thick and globular. That's a word.
Would it be more or less for ectoplasm in Ghostbusters? Let's say.
You would use more.
More, okay.
Yeah. So what you do is you mix up a solution of the powder with hot water, and as it cools, it goes into solution and will be as thick or as thin as you as you make it.
And being somebody who's played with this before, can I make a toaster or the Statue of Liberty dance when I put it on it? Is that, or that's not part of the...
Where is this coming from?
Is this a flubber?
I know I'm uncomfortable again.
Okay, so in the end of Ghostbusters 2, when they make the Statue of Liberty walk, they spray the ectoplasm against it.
Yeah.
So I'm just being an idiot and assuming that in the product is part of the whole...
I see,
like,
yes,
yeah.
and that did pop into my mind, yes.
How dense is flubber?
Like, I can't give away all the secrets. Okay.
Slightly less dense than
Are there
usual.
are there trade secrets? Like, are there like a chef?
I would never give any. I would never keep
yeah.
any secrets. 'Cause
Okay.
that was how Dick was. He's like, he would tell you anything, and that's why we know so much and are able to do all this stuff.
Because you share, like it's a shared knowledge, right? So
Yeah.
it's like if you figure out a way to do this better than it was before, to hide that to yourself really just keeps it off the screen, which means
Totally.
the reason we're all fans, right? So
Yeah.
you wanna see that.
Okay, so back to what we were talking about. I
Yeah.
wanted to get to that. So was there the major innovation in your industry that maybe changed things?
Oh, I think there's two. One again is so we used to use like makeup, like pigment mixed with oil is makeup. So we would use rubber mask grease paint, and there's a movie that came out in the late '60s called The Illustrated Man with Rod Steiger, and this guy named George Bow came out with this pigmented plastic makeup that you could put it on somebody and it wouldn't rub off until you use like a remover, and then it would come off. So they did Rod Steiger's whole body up with this stuff, and you'd paint it on or whatever. So somebody took that information, and I think Dick Smith actually used it for the body makeup for Linda Blair in The Exorcist, because she's in that refrigerated room, and he didn't want to keep touching her up with what would have been cake makeup, which is a water-based thing, because it'd just be too cold. So I think he made a version for her body makeup. But somebody took the information and created a product which we call alcohol-activated makeup. So it comes in palettes like a watercolor, except you use 99% alcohol. And it dissolves this, and then you can paint it on, and then it dries. And it's rub-proof.
Right.
Oh.
So that's a really cool innovation. So you can buy it in liquids, and we can airbrush it and stuff like that. And then the other innovations are using silicone instead of foam latex, which we kind of talked about because it just moves and looks more like real flesh. And then the other innovation is actually making prosthetics where you don't have to go through the whole process of having a positive and a negative and putting the stuff in and then all that. So we can actually create prosthetics. How can I describe it? We just make a very simple mold. Like we'll sculpt something on a board like a cut, and we can make a little silicone mold of it, which sets in 10 minutes, and you peel that off, and then you can put silicone into that and peel it out and put it on somebody. Or this really great genius in LA named Christian Tinsley, he has a company called Tinsley Transfers, and they're tattoos. But he came up with a way of making three-dimensional self-sticking prosthetics. And I think the first movie they used it on was The Passion of the Christ, where Jim Caviezel is he's been
Whipped up
flogged.
and
And
stuff.
Oh yeah, with the whips and everything.
so that whole makeup, if you did it in the traditional way, would have taken 8 or 9 hours to get the guy ready. So they came up with this technique, and the prosthetics are made of a thickened glue that we use, which actually Dick Smith discovered this glue called Prosade. And you can mix it with acrylic paint to make another rub-proof makeup called Pax, and we'd use that on foam rubber. So if you take this Prosade, it's a water-based adhesive, and you thicken it, you can squeegee it into these molds and freeze it for an hour, and then you just put it in a dehydrator to get all the moisture out of it. And then it's made out of glue, so you just stick it on somebody, and it's on, like in moments.
Oh, wow.
So I had to do an aging makeup for a show last year, and it was for TV, and they always want fast. It's got to be done fast, Doug. And it's like, okay, and sweat's pouring off my ever-expansive
fast
forehead.
and cheap.
It's like,
get
oh
one
my
or the
God.
other.
Yeah, fast and cheap. No, fast, cheap, and good. You can choose two.
Yes. Can't
So,
always have.
You can't choose
Never
three. Yeah. So I use this technique to create this age makeup by making like nasolabial jowl pieces and eye bags and crow's feet and whatever, and I could do the whole makeup in an hour with paint and everything. Whereas if you use a traditional way to do it, it would take 2 to 3 hours.
Big jump.
Yeah.
Huge time saver.
Yeah, and also if you make the pieces properly, like there's no edges and anything. So I worked with this really high-profile director, and she just kept coming up to me going, "This looks really good." Like I was really worried about using prosthetics and aging, because they can look bad. We've all seen bad age makeups. This looks real. This looks really good, Doug. I'm like, cool.
Nice.
So,
that's so great.
yeah. So
I guess that's the ultimate compliment, is that if somebody says, I couldn't tell that you used any that you used prosthetics or any makeup.
the ultimate compliment is when they don't say anything.
Right.
Right,
Then they
like-
didn't
I
notice.
guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's this old guy doing this? That's
Well, I mean, if it's a movie like Darkest Hour and Gary Oldman is playing Churchill, you go,
Yes.
that's a great makeup because but there's times where we'll take somebody on set and nobody says anything. It's because they just don't.
wow.
They're not aware. Right? And that's when at the end of the day you just go, yeah.
Yeah. Tick that box and carry.
That's right.
While you keep mentioning certain makeups, what are some of your favorites that you've seen that other people have done? Like, what's in your, like, you're just like flabbergasted by?
Yeah, so there's a Japanese makeup artist named Kazuhiro Tsuji. I think he goes by Kazuhiro. And
That's the short version.
Yeah, this guy did the makeup for Darkest Hour on Gary Oldman, and he just won an Oscar. He won an Oscar for that.
For Bombshell. Yes. For Charlize Theron.
Charlize Theron.
That's the movie where Scarlett Johansson plays every character.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
She Eddie Murphy's her way through.
yeah. So, I mean, the guy he's a genius because he can, do makeups and, like we know it's Charlize Theron, but I'm looking at it going, what did he do to her to make her look so much like her, but it doesn't look like
Yeah,
makeup?
you can hardly even tell.
No. But here's one of the genius things that, he's a genius. One of the things that he came up with was, and this is using digital technology, Megan, what's her name? The real person.
Megan.
Megyn Kelly?
Megan
Kelly. I think that's right.
Dang.
points.
So she has quite wide nostrils, and Charlize Theron has quite narrow ones. And so what Kazu did was he took a mold of the inside of her nostrils, and then he took that information, inputted it into his computer, and using a program made these plugs that she could breathe through that were bigger. And then he 3D printed them and printed a little handle that he could use for tweezers, and he would put them into her nostrils, and it widened it.
Wow.
And it's like, who would think of doing that?
You just
Kazu
think,
is the
wow.
guy's a
Kazu.
genius.
That's how you. That's Oscar, right?
That's Oscar, yeah. And then he
Yeah.
also did this thing, because I was looking at the makeup going, like, he did something to her eyes, and he made these kind of brow lid pieces that just totally transform her. If those weren't there, it wouldn't have worked. But he did some other things, but those things made her look like this woman.
When I saw the trailer, I thought it was Megan Kelly.
Yeah.
And then you hear her speak, and it's just 2 words, and you're like, "What?
Yeah.
How? How did you do that so well?"
So to me, those kind of makeups are incredibly challenging, and if you can pull them off, way more. I'm not saying that it's better than creating a Wolfman that Rick Baker did on
Right.
Benicio del Toro, but
Also huge.
yeah, amazing, incredible makeup. But this passes for a real person and looks real.
Yes, yeah.
And that the skill and art and technology used to create that is, so that this guy really impresses me. Like, so anytime he got out of the movie business for a while because you work with a lot of undesirables in the movie business. And he got out of it for a while, and he got lured back into it by Gary Oldman saying, "I can only do this movie if you create this makeup. That's the only way I'm going to do this."
Did he work with Oldman previously on anything, or did he just?
He
Oldman
met-
was a fan.
Oldman was supposed to be in the 2001 Planet of the Apes, and
Okay.
he met him there, and then through the years he'd seen
Oh, the
other
Mark
work that
Wahlberg
he'd-
Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
That's why they brought him in again when they did the
Rise of the Planet.
Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Like he came back for one, didn't he?
They just brought him in because he's a great designer, and
Right.
he created a 3-dimensional bust of Caesar with all the hair punched in and everything. So Gary Oldman knew this guy's a genius, and so he said, if anybody can create this makeup and make it pass, it's him. And if he doesn't do this movie, because he was retired from the movie business, then we're not making the movie.
Wow.
And so
That's a lot of power to have.
Kazu's like, well, okay, but I don't want to apply it every day. So
Okay.
they did like 5 tests over the course of a year. He did all the testing, and then other people applied it.
That right there is just a great case of how much effort and time and money it takes to make a movie. Doing makeup, testing makeup before there's even a day on set.
But almost how much, but also the respect
Yes.
that someone like Gary Oldman has. And Gary Oldman is, he was quoted as saying something like, if I take on this part and I know that I have to be in this makeup, the least I can do is show up and sit in the chair, and if they ask me to do whatever to get this makeup on and make it look good, I'm going to do that, because if I don't, it might not look as good, and I need to give them the respect to get this perfect. And conversely, then when I'm on set and I need it quiet, then people should respect what I need to be able to perform. But it should never be, and I've encountered this tons of times where, you have actors who take on a part and they're supposed to get old or whatever, and they just don't want any part of it, and it makes your job
that much hard.
difficult.
Yeah.
And
I would
always
imagine
think,
that that's coming though. But again, the things that happen in Hollywood, that's a whole other planet compared to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be playing in a like prime example would be Brad Pitt not knowing that he's getting de-aged in Benjamin Button, and then finally it's like the day of, it's like, Brad,
But
you know
here's-
that this was coming the entire time, buddy.
But here's the thing. So when they were going to do that, he wasn't really going to be involved in any of the stuff when he's the old little person. He was only going to start to be involved in the character when they start using makeup on him.
Okay.
And he said, I'm this character throughout the whole movie, and so I should be involved with all aspects of this, and he's absolutely correct. And so he was.
Which then people, I shouldn't say people because I don't speak for the human race, but those are the things that when you hear about it after the fact, you're like, that's why I like that movie.
Exactly.
Because those they didn't cheapen it and cut it off and go, okay, we can CGI this.
Yeah.
It's blending the two we
So
talked about.
From a
what-
fan's point of view, it's neat to hear about how the actor's influencing the direction, is influencing the makeup, is
Oh, yeah.
influencing.
And so what they did was they got Kazu and Rick Baker, and they got a cast of Brad Pitt's head, and they got designs of what Greg Cannon, the makeup artist, how he was going to look when he's aged, when the makeup starts about 60s. And then they used that and created a silicone head that they used for when he looks older but's younger, you know what I mean? And that's what they scanned digitally used for most of the stuff leading up to the makeup.
Man, the technology that comes with this industry is
Yeah.
just mind-blowing. But I mean, if you're creating a world, so
Yeah.
you want to have when you look at the screen, I had this on the list of things I want to ask you. Can you turn off makeup artist Doug Morrow and go into
It's
fan
funny
Doug Morrow?
because I was kind of looking at what was on the TV here before
Yeah,
we
Lord
started.
of War, yeah.
And I was looking at it, and I was watching a guy get shot, and and the squibs and whatever, and to me, I was sitting there thinking, I know this guy's got like a protective thing on, and he's got these squibs, and it took me out of what was happening.
Right.
Whereas if I go see, I'm just going to use Darkest Hour again.
Sure. Do you like this movie?
Yeah, just a little bit. Not only is it a great movie and it's a great cast, but never once am I taken out of the movie by anything. But because I love movies so much, I can go to a movie that doesn't have any makeup in it, and if the performances and all that are awesome, I'm going to love this movie. Like I love Sideways with Paul Giamatti, one of my favorite movies.
Not fucking drinking Merlot.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that movie. So as I've gotten older, my tastes have changed, and I really love movies like that are just character-driven movies. But yeah, there's times where I'll go to a movie and I'll see something that's just bad, and it's just all of a sudden it's like, I'm not involved in this.
I mean, and clearly you have such more of a critical eye than the rest of us.
Yeah.
that must be really kind of disheartening for you when it can take you out that easily.
Yeah, but I also know that I'm looking at movies in a different way, right? I mean, there's only, and this, I'm not trying to brag or anything, because I'm really hard on myself, and most of everything that I do I think sucks. But there's one show that
You're creative, man. Everybody thinks that.
Well,
you have that
typical
brain.
artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe a good way to be, because if I think that I'm great, that's worse.
There's
But
confidence, and then there's ego, right?
Exactly, yeah. So I did a TV movie about Jack Layton several years ago, and it's the only show I've ever done where I can watch it from beginning to end, and the guy's got prosthetics on the whole time, and I don't even remember the experience of making it. I just watched the story.
Wow.
And it's the
That's so great.
only project of mine that I can feel that way. Yeah.
That's got to be a good feeling.
Yeah.
So what are some of your favorites
That I've done?
that you've done?
I did a TV movie about Annette Funicello. We did some
Like Frankie and Annette?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did some really cool aging makeups for that. This Jack Layton show. I did this TV series on for 1 year called The Pinkertons.
Yeah,
And,
filmed over by the train station in Winnipeg
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just an awesome show. We were on it for 7 months, and it's like one of my most favorite projects ever. It was just a great cast.
It's like a Western kind of
it was
feel,
about
right?
the Pinkerton Security Agency in the 1860s.
Yeah, they were kind of like marshals, were
Yeah.
they? Or not? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Didn't they protect like stagecoaches and?
Yeah, they did all
Yeah,
kinds of
that's right.
stuff.
Yeah.
So that's one of my all-time favorite projects. It was just so much fun, and
All over fun, or like just doing your job? Like what? Like
all over fun.
Okay, yeah.
In terms of like what I actually do, like that Jack Layton TV movie, Happy Gilmore, Jumanji.
what was Jumanji like?
It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Like what were you doing on Jumanji?
So I was the assistant prosthetic artist, and so what we did was our main job was we turned the little boy Bradley Pierce into the monkey. That was
Sweet.
that was our main job every day. So that was actually I did this when I was like 29, so I was like young and had lots of energy. Because he was a minor, he could only work 8 or 9 hours a day. So
Fucking child labor laws, I tell you.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
and that included the makeup, which took just over 3 hours.
Yeah.
So, and then take
With
like
a child
half
sitting
an
in a
hour,
chair.
45 minutes. Yeah. So what they did was they probably don't want to tell me all the secrets, but whatever. It's a long time ago. They hired these twins as body doubles. So once you put the makeup on and you shot them from, like
XYZ
a
distance.
full distance, standing away or further, it looked like
Same
the
kid.
kid. So what we would do is the makeup artist Charles Porley and we would do Bradley up in the morning. We'd get him all ready, and Charles would go to set with him, and then we had another assistant, Brad. And then Brad and I would do the body
next-
double.
Oh, okay.
And then so we'd spend 3 hours doing him up, and by the time we were done him, the first kid was almost done the day. So then he would come back, and we would clean him up, and the little body double would
So
go
it's
to
just a
set.
nice switch.
Yeah, so that was
Okay.
what I did for 2.5, 3 months. Was
Making
just
monkeys.
Making monkeys.
Pumping out monkeys so you
Yeah.
can work all day.
Yeah. So to me, it was like my closest Planet of the Apes thing.
Yeah. You've been training for this.
Yeah. So and it was Rob Williams. It was just just so much fun. The guy was just amazing.
That's super cool.
While we've got you here, can I ask you about Colton Curse of Chucky? I couldn't help but notice that you did a bit of work on that.
A preface on this for Jimmy is Jimmy loves all horror.
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
I just want to know, like, did you get to work with Don Mancini a lot? Did you? Yeah. What
yeah.
was that like? Like, I can't imagine. Like, I just from like Seed and Bride, just seeing him, like, his growth as a director was huge for me. Like, I love these movies compared to what he's done just before that. So,
Yeah.
what was that like to be around and work around.
First of all, he's just the most lovely man you could ever meet.
Oh, that warms my heart.
And he's an awesome director and really great to work with in that he's like super approachable and because not all directors are, and sometimes you don't feel like you can come up to them and
Right.
ask them a question or something stupid like that.
Something, that helps the whole production.
Exactly. Whereas, Don, he's just like, whatever's going to make the movie better. And and just, he's part of the team and
Right.
just lovely. And a great director. And also, Fiona Dourif,
Yeah.
he's got such an amazing rapport with her and with
Brad.
Brad Dourif. He was really fun to work with, and also Jennifer Tilly. And
Right.
so they're really like a family, and you can see it on set. And
I love Jennifer Tilly. I love that she's just willing to give 110% for this series.
and she's
It's amazing.
She's really nice and super lovely, and I've worked with her a few times.
You played
she's
poker
great.
with her?
No, I'm not stupid. No. I'm Scottish. I like to hold on. To hold on to my money.
Oh.
But
This just warms my heart to hear.
but just just a great experience, and just okay. Do you think that we could, we want to shoot this eye getting poked out? I know we didn't talk about it. Could we do that? Like, and it's like, yeah, man. Like,
Hell yeah.
And part of the reason why you want to say, yeah, man, of course, is because he's such a great guy and treats you not only as an equal but as a professional. And when
Amazing.
someone is nice and also like that, you want to bend over backwards to do whatever you can.
And
I
it
would
probably
do
just makes your
anything
job
for Don.
like 10 times easier and 10 times more fun to do.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, because there's other times, and, we're getting paid good money to do this stuff, but if you're working with somebody who you get the feeling doesn't appreciate you or thinks that I'm above you, you still do 110%,
Yeah.
but it's not with a smile on your face.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you got to do it for your credibility, obviously. But the extra 50 or 60% that you leave on the floor at the end of the day comes from.
And they
guys like
noticed
Doug.
this. They noticed this. Like I did this TV series last year called Tales from the Loop, and the pilot was directed by a guy named Mark Romanek, who did 1 Hour Photo.
Yes, yeah.
And he was the original director of The Wolfman that Benicio del Toro did.
Okay.
And he was great. Like I had a great rapport with him, and he had a really specific vision of everything. But there was one day, where the last shot was on the back of an actress, and she was kind of in the dark, silhouette-y. And I'm like, if the actor's here, I'm not, like, it was the last shot. I'm not going to leave. I'm, in my mind, I'm just going to stay because just in case, they might turn around or something. So we, cut, print, print. It's not film anymore, Doug. Anyway.
Made the newspaper.
Yeah. You can see how old I am, right? So
That
anyway.
reminded me of the boys from Brazil, where they have the dogs and he uses the commands, cut, print to kill.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yes.
One of my favorite movies. So anyway, I'm leaving the set. We're in the studio, leaving the set, and I walk past him, say, "Hey, good night, Mark." And he goes, "What are you still doing here?" And I said, "Well, we had an actor on set." He goes, "You didn't need to be here." And I said, "Well, you just never know." And he goes, "You know why you're still here, Doug?" I go, "No, why?" "You're a pro." And I was like, that was better than any paycheck because, he's noticing that.
He's recognizing the sweat that you're putting
Exactly.
into this.
Yeah.
And you care about the product too.
100%.
Yeah.
Like if if actors go to set and I always try to be there on set before they get there, it freaks me out. Like, and that's where I should be. And you work sometimes with people who don't go to set as often as they should. I have to be there. That's where I'm supposed to be. It's not in the trailer doing paperwork or whatever. I'm on set. That's where the actors are. That's where I need to be.
Touch-ups are on set.
Yeah.
Changes on the fly are on set.
Exactly.
So do you have the power at all, speaking of that, if you see something through your eye that's off, right, that you can tell, do you have the power to tell the director to stop so that you can?
I would never, because that's not my job to cut a scene.
Yeah.
But at the end of the shot, I have done it tons of times where I've gone up to him and said, "This didn't look right. This didn't look good. You should seriously consider shooting it again because of whatever. And 99 times out of 100, they're like, yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, sometimes they make fun of it. Okay, we got to go again for makeup, you know, and everybody laughs at you and whatever and whatnot. But for sure, because, again, they're hiring you based on your experience and your expertise. And they're looking at the whole picture, whereas I'm just looking at something specific. And if it's not going to look good, they need to hear that.
And that's like you probably said earlier, if it takes you out of the scene that you're watching, you have the more critical eye for that side of it.
100%, yeah.
You're able
and there's
to...
also times where I built effects and I stupidly think, oh, they're going to shoot it like this. And then you get it all set up and they put the camera in another angle that doesn't promote it as well. And I kind of stand there going, do I say something? Yes. And I say, you know what? This was kind of built like to be shot like, oh, okay, sure. And, you know, most of the time it's a collaborative effort. It also depends on who you're working with, but
Yeah.
Kind of like every job.
yeah.
Who knew?
So the reason we've started this, a friend of mine also does stunt work, BJ Verreau.
Yeah, it's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, I've known him since we were in grade 7.
Okay.
And I always knew that is exactly what he was going to do. He was going to do something in film.
Yep.
Didn't matter what it was. And now he's producing, he's directing, he's
Yeah.
stunting, he's the skiing stunts. Like
Yeah.
he's very close with those guys. So we wanted to do this series to promote Manitoba film.
Cool.
And Manitoba people who work in Manitoba film. So what are some of your adventures with some of, like you said, Tales from the Loop? Like that's a big Amazon, Fox monster of a production. The trailer looks amazing. So how has Manitoba film been since you've been back home? Like what have you seen change with because I mean the tax credit is huge for you guys.
And
right?
they just
cemented it.
And
added more to it.
Day,
Yeah.
just a couple days ago.
Yeah, I think it was for flag people that they are including in the.
Exactly.
yeah.
For road safety. And
Exactly,
stuff like that,
which is huge because you guys are shutting down highways for
Totally.
car chases and stunts and.
You know, the caliber and quality of the crew is just like it's unmatched anywhere. You can get the caliber that we have is in LA, in New York, or vice versa. Their caliber, we're that caliber. We're on par with any of those crews. The thing that hasn't changed, which needs to change, is the crew growth, so that we can do more than 4 shows at the same time.
So you need a bigger pool to pull from. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Having mentioned what I do in my personal life and my day job, working with you guys in rentals and such,
Yeah.
I that's all I hear. That's one of the big things is like you see. I get to see the production schedules from you guys, and then I can see when they get pushed, and I know exactly why. It's because there's not enough of you.
Yeah.
And then you start hiring, outside of your gene pool, and then you've got people who I'm sure are great workers, but aren't as trained, aren't as familiar, right? Yeah. And then obviously it starts to dwindle a little bit. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So the problem is over the years you bring new people in and you start to train them or whatever. And this was going back several years where, you'd be working and then there'd be no work, and then you'd be working. And so what do those people do when there's not a lot of jobs and then there's no work, and then they might not get on?
They leave.
They leave, right? So that's why what's happening now is it's a full-time all year round gig. And you have companies like the Cartel that are coming in that have lower budget things.
Yeah, with the movies of the week for Hallmark, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're getting people who were assistants who are now keying those shows, who are building up their experience and being in charge. And now we're bringing in new people. So hopefully this is going to create a growth that we can, do more than 4 or 5 shows at the same time without having to bring crew in or whatnot. That's what I want to see, and that's what seems to be happening. And I'm a huge proponent. Like I've trained people and give courses, and I used to teach at UW because I love what I do, and I'm not threatened by telling somebody anything about how I do it. We just want skilled people.
Yeah.
You know.
Workers.
Yeah.
I want to say on that note, there's a young daughter of one of our friends that does some babysitting for us, and she's an aspiring makeup artist. And probably about a month ago or something, she was at some sort of, and I'm trying to get the reference, was it some sort of clinic or something where you were doing some special effects makeup? February 20th, she said. At Sisler.
Oh, yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I know
she's
who
a
you're talking
student
about.
there.
Yeah.
Emma Black is her name.
Yeah.
And I knew before that how interested in makeup for the last few years. She's been super interested in beauty makeup and special effects stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd seen your name attached to that. And when this all came up, I told her that we were going to have the opportunity to speak with you, and she lost her mind. So what advice can you give to some of these aspiring, the 8-year-old you that's now discovering this world?
Most important thing is now, especially with the internet, is to learn as much as you can. Go on YouTube. It's free. You can learn anything off of YouTube.
This whole show was learned off YouTube.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, yes. Go on. Sorry.
So, get as much information you can, and then just start buying stuff and practicing. And you don't need to spend $1,000. You can buy like a little makeup kit or just a few colors and stuff at I'll plug Harlequin Theatrical Supplies, and just start doing it and practicing and take pictures and don't stop doing it.
Don't stop.
Well, and here's the thing though, I say that with a grain of salt because now a guy in his mid-50s who's done this his whole life and is super passionate about it and still am, and people that I work with make fun of me because I'll go home at night and I get into bed and I go on YouTube or Stan Winston's School of Character Arts or whatever, and I go, oh, I didn't know that. I don't know, right? I'm still doing it after working 15-hour day because I'm a loser. But
no, you're a savant.
Okay, but to have some balance in your life, because we all need that. So I love what I do, and I do it all the time, but I also now have developed other hobbies. Like I love to cook, and I played darts for like 25 years, and, I'm getting into
140!
Right. No, it's 180.
Sorry, my bad.
Oh, amateur. But to have some balance. But when you're starting out, you kind of have to outweigh the balance with your passion, and because you're not going to get anywhere if you don't A, do it and practice, and B, believe in yourself.
Do you see social media being a big part of the younger people now?
It's so much easier to get your name out there, to get your pictures out there, and to get information. Like, it's incredible. And you can see it, you can trace it by looking at social media in the last 15 years. And you would have a few artists who were really good, and now you have 1 million of them.
Because those few inspired the many.
Totally. And now, like, you have these like, there's a couple of young girls that I know who are just the most incredible face painters, and they can just take one-dimensional makeup and paint it, and it looks three-dimensional, and it's incredible. And I sit there going, I should not do this anymore for a living. I should go work in a diner, and because they're incredible. Yeah. But what it does is it also inspires you to go, no, I can't, I'm going to go practice. And
it's funny you say there's one girl I see on TikTok and Instagram who has alopecia. She has no hair whatsoever. And she does these like such crazy elaborate face paint. And it's just like young girls that do this for like, I'm sure when she was, 12, 13 and has just been doing it now for 10 years.
And the other thing we're seeing now too is this is, the movie business is a global thing. But now because of social media, we are seeing incredible artists in countries that you never even think would produce work that is as good as Kazu's. It's just incredible. And you look at that going, you're from Bulgaria and you're doing that. Don't come to Winnipeg because I don't want to work in a diner.
It's my territory, motherfucker.
Yeah, and so
stay out.
I think it's a Swedish couple. I think they're from Sweden, and they have been nominated for 2 Oscars for the 100-year-old man who jumped out a window and climbed a mountain or something, and
very
another
wordy.
one called something Ove, and they're Swedish
Oh,
movies.
yes. I know about Ove, yeah.
So these people are incredible. They're so talented, and they're in Sweden, and now like they're all over the world. And before in the 70s, it was there's Rick Baker, a young guy, and that was it. And now they're everywhere because they're able to find information and discern it and build their stuff in practice and keep practicing, and that's what it takes. And if you want to do what I do, you have to practice. You have to, and I always make this a kinship. I don't know if that's the right word. No, don't cut that out. This similarity to being an artist is, especially if you are a commercial artist, to being an athlete or a ballerina, because you only get better by practicing. So NHL players, they don't just, they don't do anything else except play a game. Those guys practice every day. If you're a ballerina, you practice every day. If you want to do this and become a great sculptor, you have to do it every day.
And as you say, I like hockey, now that the pool is so large to draw from, you have to be that much better.
Exactly. So when I first started in this, I was a terrible sculptor. And in the last year, because I've moved to the country, I've built this little workshop and whatnot. I just took 4 months off. All I did was sculpt, and all I do is practice sculpting human faces.
All I do is sculpt. Sorry.
So that
The peanut gallery.
yeah, totally, yeah. Now I'm super uncomfortable.
No, I'm sorry, man.
No, okay.
It just popped in my head.
This is sort of our brand. So
Okay,
to be fair.
I like it. It's really good. So what I've been doing is I've just been creating these old age makeups. I've been sculpting them, doing all the lab work and everything, so that I can get better. And I've been doing this for over 30 years now. I'm in my mid 50s, and I don't want to sit back and go, yeah, I worked on Jumanji. No, I want to be able to go, yeah, I see that last year I did that, and now look at what I'm doing this year.
You're progressing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get into this just to, and I shows like this, it's fun to talk about your career, but I'm not one of those people that, I worked on Happy Gilmore and da-da-da-da-da. No,
Those were the days.
I'm not going to rest on that. I want to be the best for myself that I can be. And that's not something that I did 30 years ago. It's got to keep being current.
That's super awesome.
Yeah.
And do you see yourself staying here?
Oh yeah. There's no need. Like I get called to, in the last few years, I've been asked to not only shoot like stuff all across Canada, which I have in the past, but also I've been called to go to India, China. Won't go there.
Nobody's going there right now.
Africa. And I still get calls to go and do these things. People see my website and they go, there was a show in India a few years ago, and they needed some aging makeups. They found me online. I talked to them on the phone a few times, and then it worked out. Didn't work out because their schedule changed and whatnot. So it's now such a global thing. I don't need to move anywhere. I can stay and do it here and be quite successful. And because there's so much work coming here. And the other great thing about, because we were talking about this before, about kind of being pigeonholed and only doing like effects stuff. Because I moved back here from Vancouver, I could have stayed in Vancouver and worked on a ton of huge giant shows just being an applicator, or just being a sculptor, or just being a mold maker. And that's fine if you want to do that. I'm not. Mm-hmm. But I, again, didn't get into it just to do that.
Right.
And the other thing is, because I moved back here, my skill set just expanded incredibly. So I can go on any movie and I can just do the regular makeup, or I can make you look old, or I can slit your throat.
Oh,
or
I would love that.
Yeah, we should have.
Or we
Jimmy's
could,
dream would have you slit his throat.
Or we could, make you look like you've been autopsied and have your organs harvested.
Someday.
Right?
How to with the Real Debaters featuring Doug Morrow.
That'll be our first video
episode
series.
1. Episode 1: How to Silence the Screams. And also, so that for me is very fulfilling, that I can pretty much, and I'm not saying I'm the greatest, but I can go and pretty much handle any situation. And the other thing too is living here, and because there's no one really else that is doing it, and I'm not trying to brag, but at this level. So I get asked to do things that maybe if I was living somewhere else, I wouldn't. They would go to somebody. Like I did this TV series years ago called Teepee Tales, and it was these little puppets, Aboriginal stories, grandparents and grandchildren, and the grandchildren go and ask the animals who represent different
spirits and stuff.
Laws.
Oh, okay.
And it was all with puppets. Well, if I had lived anywhere else, I wouldn't have been able to do that. But because I lived here and they brought this to me, we built these little cable control puppets and arm puppets, and it was awesome. We did it for 3 years. That wouldn't have happened anywhere else. And because I got to do that, I learned so much,
Well, and
That's
I think
really neat.
To play on that, I think the beauty that Manitoba is being put on the map with such hard work from Manitoba Film and Sound and showcasing
100%.
the talent here. That's just gonna you're in a really great position, I think, now to see a wide variety of all the things that you like doing, because everybody's trying us out. As to before, where they were like, well, if we have to. Now it's like, no, go there, right? I feel we're the Georgia or the Atlanta or Georgia of Canada right now, because like, yes, Vancouver, yes, Toronto, right? Those have all the things, but that's populous.
Yeah.
We have
talent.
That's totally it, Jimmy. It's like, for what we lack in a metropolis, we make up for in blood, sweat, and tears and skill.
Totally. 100%.
And so I just working as a vendor to you has been a privilege for me in my career, because like I've watched it happen at United Rentals, because nobody really tackled. That's where I work. I guess I've outed myself. Nobody was really going after the industry, and me being such a fan of it, I was like, no, they need support. They need a crew that can help them. They need people who understand the constraints, the time, the rapid changes. So I'm super glad that I've been able to kind of witness this growth with you guys.
Oh, cool.
And just see how well you're now being respected for your skills.
Oh, that's awesome. Sorry, guys. Can I go to the bathroom?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can we talk about him while he's gone?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, feel free. Can I go?
Thank you for putting your hand up, Doug.
Oh boy, that was fun.
Just want to say the sun is just fucking bright today. Oh
Are you hot in the corner there?
No. Like I walked here and I was just blind.
Yeah, it's like
the
2
whole way
degrees
here.
out.
So as a podcast, I think that we should put it together and block out the sun.
You mean get rid of the thing that hasn't been around for 3.5 months? Yeah. No, I went outside for a smoke earlier, and I took my hoodie off. It was
blinding. It's hot.
You sound like you're upset about this.
It's just that my body's not used to it yet. You know?
I can tell by the shade of your skin.
Oh, God.
It looks like Doug has applied some sort of makeup to you and made you look way paler than
I'm going for an audition for a corpse on Law and Order. Glad I just get the makeup done now.
You're auditioning for a guy who's been dead in his apartment for 5 days.
Yeah.
Bloated corpse.
Yeah. You know what? We need someone who looks more 8 to 12 day. If you could come back and put on some weight and be bloated, that would be great.
Yeah, I could do that. Easily.
This I hope everybody who's listened has found this as interesting as we have.
Absolutely.
I
feel like we could just keep going and do a 3-part series.
I think I
have so many questions, and
this is tip of the iceberg here for this guy, and knowing that he wants to come and do the cult movie nights, like that would be so great to have that perspective of somebody who's watching the movie with us and going, yep, here's where it is, here's where that is, right? Like all of the things that we're just fans of but blind to.
Something that we never even really thought of, right? Like BJ that you're talking about. Like if there's a movie that's more of an action-based movie, and having him sit in and give his take on some of the stunts or something.
He messaged me and
that would be really cool to have those insights.
Yeah, like a play-by-play, so to speak, of what's going on.
Yeah, talk about a couple key stunts in the movie, or talk about some of the makeup, some of the key moments that it would have been. That would be really, really interesting. from a total movie geek perspective.
Right. And that's the people who are going to cult movie night, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like
yeah.
that's the crowd.
You're not going to a cult movie because it's in your collection.
Right.
Your VHS tape.
You're not going to see it for the first time.
No, you're not.
You guys want to go see The Room?
Like, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that watch the movie right before coming to the movie. Like,
Yeah.
That's the third time that day they've seen it.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, that's what I
know-
mean.
I know for a fact that I'll be watching every one of those movies again before we actually go see
Oh,
it.
big
just
time.
100%.
so that I'm not naked to what's happening in it, right? Because some of
Yeah.
them on that list are from 10, 20 years ago, right?
Oh,
Like-
absolutely.
Like Living Dead's on that list. I'm like, Jesus, I've seen that movie once, maybe twice. We were just talking. Do you feel better? The coffee let go.
I'll tell you, like I usually don't drink a lot of coffee, and today I was driving around. Oh, I'll have coffee, and it's like, oh my god, it's like a racehorse. I might have to go again before I go home.
Feel free, man.
Just telling you.
I'm guessing you need a steady hand in a lot of the things you do.
Well, yeah. If I do, I don't do it because I've noticed if I do have coffee in the morning and don't eat a lot, or sometimes I arrive before food's ready, I'm shaky. Yeah.
And then the person's age has gone into the wrong direction of their face. Or like,
Correct. Yeah.
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 Yeah, they show up and say, Doug, why do they look like Bozo the Clown? We said bombshell, not Bozo.
So where do you see Manitoba Film going from here, having been a part of the union for so long, and like just you know what, actually there's something else I wanted to ask you, and I'm now remembering it. You James Lipton, have you heard that name?
Yeah.
93-year-old, the gentleman who hosted Inside the Actors Studio.
Yeah.
Okay. I loved that man. That was one of my favorite TV shows about learning about somebody's craft and just how they come. I am a behind the scenes guy, right? I never wanted to be in front of the camera for anything I did.
And the camera didn't want you in front of it.
No, it does not.
I knew somebody was going to say that.
It's a mutual relationship.
Again, that's our brand.
But he used to, and we're gonna do this on the fly here because it's the best way to do it. But he used to ask a bunch of questions at the end of the show, and because he passed away this week, I wanted to do it today with you.
Sure.
So let's start with, what is your favorite word?
Oh, man.
Off the cuff.
That's a tough one.
My favorite word. Cash. I don't know.
There you go. That rings true. I like the sound. Here's some cash.
Yeah.
What's your least favorite word?
Ooh.
Is it like everybody else that says moist or panties? Like
No, I was going to say poor.
okay.
Credit.
Debts. Debts.
Yeah.
I owe you.
Yeah.
And this is by no means sexual, but what turns you on? It could be slitting somebody's throat on set. Like, that's totally fine.
No,
for the
just,
answer.
just people totally passionate about something. Doesn't matter what it is.
Such a great answer. What turns you off?
People who have talent and are lazy and don't do anything with it, and just they don't do anything with it, and then they blame society for their
Damn society.
Preach.
for their unsuccessfulness, because I see it a lot.
Okay.
What is they say? Hard work beats talent every day, and hard work plus talent creates a superstar. Something along those lines.
One of those smart.
Yeah.
I believe it. Yeah.
What sound or noise do you love?
Oh.
The sound of cash ringing into his bank account.
Yeah. I love to cook. I don't know.
A sizzle.
A sizzle, yeah.
Oh, bacon sizzling.
Bacon sizzling, or if you're
A nice stir fry.
sauteing something and then you put the liquid in to deglaze the pan.
yeah.
That's a satisfying sound.
Yeah.
Because that's a sound and a smell.
Do you watch a lot of Food Network, Doug?
Basically, here's my day. When I'm working in my shop, I either watch Turner Classic Movies
Yeah, TCM.
or one of those food shows.
Top Chef, Master Chef, Iron Chef. Yeah.
Nah, no, not those as much as more shows that show you how to cook.
Oh, okay. All right. So like how-tos and such.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thought about getting into food makeup at all.
There's a whole career of doing that.
I know this. That's what I was asking.
I have a friend that works at Skip. They got to do ad marketing. I could put you in touch with them.
No, those hamburgers talk way too much. Yeah, too much talk back from those smash burgers.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Oh, fingernails on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
Can't stand that.
What's a chalkboard again?
yeah.
Sorry, typewriter.
Look,
for
young
Jim.
man.
It's a keyboard, yes.
Typewriter, yeah.
Of course, yes.
What's your favorite curse word?
Beep.
You can swear. We're explicit.
Oh, no. Just, wow. God, these are hard
When you really
questions.
screw up and you're doing something,
You know
what
what
do
my favorite
scream?
curse word is?
Yeah.
Everybody's saying it now because of me. Shazbot.
I think we might inherit that one as
Wow.
well.
Do you
too.
know what that's from?
I don't.
know.
Mork and Mindy.
I was
that's
going to
what-
say it's from Mork and Mindy, is
Yeah.
it not?
I say it all the time, and now like people around me who are
100%.
with me around all the time, and they
Nanu.
they
That's all
say
I
it.
know from work.
Shazbot.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Chef, cook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And last one that I know of that I can remember. You are at the pearly gates. God has granted you access. What is the first thing you want to hear him say?
I can make you look 30 pounds lighter.
There it is.
I was hoping the makeup table's over here. Here's your own grand studio for Miles. Play with whatever you want. Jimmy, is there anything else you want to throw at Doug before he walks out?
We didn't talk much about horror movies.
Oh.
But
We
if
might
you
have to do
want.
a whole separate episode on horror and makeup or
It
something.
would be
at
very
some
lovely
point.
to have you back.
sure, I would love to come back. It's been fun.
I think the amount of information and knowledge and history that you have is definitely a 3-part series at
Okay.
minimum.
Because
so.
on that topic, I was going to say just a little piece. I know it's not a movie, but
It's okay. We slum in TV. That's
yeah, we
Dark.
saw them on TV once in a while. But like The Walking Dead, that's been going on for a decade, that has to be pushing the limits of gore and interesting ways to destroy people. And
Oh,
what are your
it's-
feelings
totally.
on that?
As I've gotten older, like I actually find it a little violent.
As do I.
Yeah.
And what's really funny is a couple of years ago at Halloween, AMC was playing Friday the 13th movies,
Yeah.
and then in the evening they were showing The Walking Dead. And in the original Friday the 13th, there's a scene where Kevin Bacon's lying on the bed and he gets the arrow through the back of the neck,
throat. Yeah.
and they cut it.
Oh.
And it was like 11 in the morning, and wow, that's really weird. They cut that out. And then at night, at 7 o'clock on The Walking Dead, they showed some guy getting his head chopped off.
Like what?
And I was like, I don't understand the rationale,
Time?
with that.
Well, it definitely is time of day based on the network knowing who's tuning in. But both of those things are one's more worse than the other.
Yeah.
What I found interesting and that I had heard about The Walking Dead and the costuming and makeup there is that there's the generic zombie, but they really start getting specific onto this person died this way, and
Yep.
this is what would result from that.
Yeah.
And that
And
was kind of neat.
It's really cool, and it's also neat to watch. I'm not I don't watch it all the time. My wife's like just totally loves it and watches it all the time. But what's really cool is I think it's been on TV for 10 years or something.
Yeah, if not
Something
more.
like
But
that.
it's actually only, I think, 3 or 4 years in the actual story. You can see the zombies from season 1 to season 10 and how they're slowly decomposing. Like, it's really cool.
Yeah.
So they look like
So they've
the
taken that into
zombies-
consideration.
The zombies from season 1 look
Fresh.
very different from the zombies in season 10. It's really cool. And the other really neat thing about that, if you guys don't know this little bit of trivia, is they will, on some episodes, they will take a well-known zombie or cadaver creature from another movie, and they will do a homage to them and put them in it just as a zombie walking by. So they've done like Jack from American Werewolf in London, or Bub from I can't remember which Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, whatever movie. I don't know. Do you guys remember who Bub is?
I know what you're getting at.
This
I don't
is
know
yours,
who Bub
Jimmy.
is, but yeah, Jimmy.
I'm drawing a blank here.
Yeah. Really? So get your little Google machine out there, young man, and just put Bub in and see what happens. But
I'm gonna pen a letter to somebody and see if we can get a response.
Okay, yeah. So I really like that they do that, and then they're paying homage to to the earlier
That's great.
zombies,
and in a great way
whatnot.
to do it too. If you're going to make up 100 people
Oh,
looking
from
like
Day
that.
of the Dead. Yeah.
Day of the Dead, yeah. Oh, now he gets it. Yeah. So I really like that. I would find that show really hard to work on because, one, because the days would probably be really long or whatever, but to actually try and come up with zombies and different zombies now would be That'd be difficult.
Well, like I noticed that the zombies in like Romero's movies are all very slow moving, and then slowly, like through the 2000s, they made them faster.
Yeah, I
and,
love
like,
that. That's
yeah, me
really
too.
cool.
It's actually scary, and it's
Yeah.
I don't know,
It
scared
adds
the crap out of me.
a state of suspense to a chase scene,
Yeah.
whereas an impending doom. Okay, we all know what's going to happen at the end, but let's see them have to work a little bit, right?
Yeah, it's like now that to me, like the zombies in The Walking Dead or walkers, whatever you want to call them, they're almost like roaches or ants or something that are just kind of bothersome.
Yes.
As opposed to if you watch the remake of Dawn of the Dead, where they're running
Yeah.
and World War Z, like and
A wall of zombies.
a wall of zombies, and the makeups in World War Z or Z, sorry, Canadian. They are so cool looking. They're really, really neat looking, and they're totally different from how other zombies are portrayed on screen.
Legend.
I Am Legend. So I really like that, but I love that they're fast moving. It makes it so scary.
Get your heart going.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're real antagonists as opposed to just, like you said,
Background.
a nuisance.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
they're
cool.
they're actually scary. Yeah.
Well, I know I can do another 2 hours of just horror and prosthetic. Like we can deep dive into everything that you've talked about.
Do you want to know what's really funny though
Yes.
about me? I've done a ton of horror movies and whatnot. It's not my really favorite genre. Sorry.
What is?
Blasphemy.
I would much rather watch Amadeus.
I was going to say
So
period
period
pieces.
pieces.
Well, character makeups, period pieces. Not so much period pieces. Character makeups, in terms of that kind of stuff.
And so it was filmed in Vancouver.
Amadeus?
Yeah.
No, that was
wait.
shot in Prague.
That was shot. Okay, but did I misunderstand? Did you work on that or
No, Dick Smith did.
Dick's? Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
we're going
Dick
back to the
actually
beginning of
sent
the
me prosthetics from Amadeus that I got to study, and so I took like 1 million pictures of them with my old 35mm camera, and I had to get the film developed. But really cool.
Were they in focus?
Yeah,
podcast. There it is.
son of a bitch. Yes, they were. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
Thanks for having me.
This was mind-blowingly great to just learn about a pocket of how the whole thing happens, and a very important pocket nonetheless, because
Thanks, yeah.
I've seen some of your work. I've seen Dog's Purpose. I can't wait for Tales from the Loop.
Neither can I. Yeah.
I think that's a real big thing for Manitoba.
You should have seen the one of the sets was just incredible.
Was
like
it the
nothing,
one at Birds Hill, or was it the one that? Oh, it was
No,
one in
one in studio.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna give it away, but
but
nothing like this has ever been built or made or seen in Manitoba before, and it was
Right on.
It was really cool.
On that note, as we sign off, let us know what things we can see your work in that are going to be coming out soon, like that.
Yeah. So Tales from the Loop, which I think starts airing in April, and I have a movie that I did last year called Run with Sarah Paulson. I didn't do her makeup. She had a personal makeup artist who's really amazing. Erin Kruger McCash, who's been nominated for I'm not kidding, 35 Emmys, and just lovely woman. But yeah, a movie called Run, Sarah Paulson and this new actress Kira Allen.
the trailer looks so crazy.
Yeah. It's just a really messed up story.
Have you guys seen the
I
trailer
have
at all?
not.
No, I haven't.
Tell them this. I will butcher it. So if you want to,
How do you say it without giving away anything? Basically, there's a mom and she's just really messed up.
yeah, that would be
That's
the
all I
easy-
want to say right
it's
now.
it's the darkest relationship that you could have with a mother and daughter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
But,
that comes out Mother's Day or Mother's Day
Oh,
weekend.
that does.
Mother's Day. There we
go. Yeah, no, that's why it's funny.
Yeah. So just in the next few months, those are the things that I have that you'll be able to see.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I will put all of your stuff up with the episode so people can go check out some of your work that you've done.
Great.
We'll link everything to that so that everybody can see how fantastic of a job you do
Thank you.
in this crazy industry.
Thanks.
For everybody out there, if this is your first time listening to us, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Real Debaters. If you want to send an email in regarding this show or any other show, it's the Real Debaters at Gmail. The Real Debaters podcast at gmail.com. I'm gonna fuck that up until.
God damn it.
Yeah, no. That's why no one emails us. I think.
They can figure it out.
Give them a different email every time.
There's probably some email account with the wrong one you keep saying that's just full of emails.
So the Real Debaters podcast at gmail.com. You can follow us. You can check out our merch page. We've got new merch. So it's
Designed by humans?
designedbyhumans.com/shop/the prop shop, because we were funny like that. That'd be a great title. Besides that, I've been Micheal Petrow.
Mark Cowell.
Jimmy Skinner.
And our fucking amazing special guest,
Doug Morrow. Thank you.